everyone, and welcome to another episode of Clicks Over Coffee. I'm Israel.
I'm Rahim.
And today we have our emotional support Lego head because things are about to get deep.
Yeah.
Right? We're living in a world where there's a lot happening globally, a lot happening locally. And, things can seem overwhelming, emotionally overwhelming, taxing. Sometimes you just feel like you need to unplug and disconnect, but then there are not a lot of options to unplug and disconnect. So it feels like you're kind of caught between, as Bajans would say, caught between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
And that really leads to despondency, etc. So today we're going to be discussing those themes and what's happening globally, locally, and what we can do about it personally as well.
Yeah. Right. So to start off, just a global view. There's a lot that's happening.
What isn't happening?
What isn't actually? Very
What isn't happening?
What isn't happening? Right. Donald Trump, his presidency has. I'm pretty sure every time I've listened to the news over these past couple of months, something that Donald Trump has done, or some news around Donald Trump or what's going on with Donald Trump has been at the headlines.
That presidency has taken off like a SpaceX rocket.
Right. Obviously there's many different opinions on what the actions he's taking and whatnot. But but all I can say is one general opinion you could take away from it is that his presidency has brought along a lot of changes, and with a lot of changes comes tension.
Yeah.
Right. And especially also now with him trying to resolve the conflict in Russian-Ukraine war, brings a lot of political tensions, a lot of global tensions as well. Regardless of
what side of the fence you're on,
right?
And it's interesting because not only are we seeing tensions like that globally, but we're seeing tensions like that locally with, we'll get into like increased crime rates in the island, despondency over actions of politicians and things being sold, etc. So what we're seeing happening on the global scale, you almost see mirrored on the local scale.
It's happening at all levels of like reality.
Everything everywhere all at once.
Pretty much, right? So there's a war in Ukraine. There's obviously the things we've been experiencing for a while with Hamas and Israel.
The war in Sudan.
And
Syria. In December, like Bashar al-Assad got deposed and Syrian rebels took over and all of that. So sorry.
Yeah, so it's like but thanks for bringing it out because it always feels like there's always something else you just don't know about.
And when these things start, they don't stop. It's like they're always going on in the background. The background noise just gets louder and louder and louder. And it's like, that we go along about our daily lives, but the background noise becomes inescapable. Hard to get away from after
Can't get away from it on TikTok. Can't get away from it on Instagram, Twitter,
YouTube, nothing.
Right?
So
like you see it. And I think the thing that has changed with how we interface with technology, like back in, let's say, I don't know.
Back in my day.
Yeah, back in his day.
I got the gray hairs to show, like, honestly.
But I said back in like 1980s, right? 1990s, right?
I was just born.
Yeah, the internet isn't what it is now, right? We didn't have it here. We don't have phones in our faces. Most of what you heard from television or from the radio, right? So your updates for what's going on in the world came through a specific time.
Specific checkpoints.
Specific checkpoints in the day, and it was in a very controlled environment. And I would say for 90% of your day, you didn't have to really think about it or interface with it. Now, at any point you should go on your phone, you're seeing something. Like I just checked my phone, and I'm seeing, calls for calls for donations to people in Israel. People in Palestine. Displaced families and things like that.
If you want to give me donations, it's fine. My name is Israel. You could give me donations.
You really want to make that point when you're the boss of this place?
But any donations that you make will trickle down to you guys.
Okay, sure. Yeah, made some donations. In
the comments.
Right. So,
emotional support girl is shaking her head. She's like, goodness.
Disappointed. But anyway, so like there's no point at which you aren't unawares or not kind of like obviously we're not directly affected, but it's kind of like y-
You feel like what else? It's
yeah,
like there's a
it's like
constant
what
waves
there's
of
constant
things,
waves
constant
of things,
pulses just hitting you,
just
hitting you.
hitting you, right?
It's like if you were to torture somebody. You
Yeah,
know, like if a drop of water
like
is
the water
the
drop,
water drop torture,
torture,
like
yeah,
it's hitting you, and normally it's like okay, fine, that's just water, but then it keeps dropping and dropping and dropping to the point where it starts to erode your skull.
yeah,
You
right.
know,
And it's like obviously we don't suffer the full effects of these events,
correct.
given that we're in Barbados. But all I can imagine is like, you know, it being like obviously we don't suffer it directly, but like being so aware of what's always all the wrong things that's happening, all the
Yeah,
bad things that's happening in the world, can kind of get to you,
yeah.
right? Because the news doesn't really push the good stuff as much as because
Bad news
bad news
sells, right?
sells,
Yeah.
right? Exactly, right? And yeah, it doesn't create a very healthy relationship with the world or with technology.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It actually warps your idea of the world because, and I hate to say it like this because I don't have the actual statistics to show, but there are many statistics to show that we are living in one of the safest periods in
we
world
are
history.
we are
Yet people feel the most unsafe, or yet
yeah
people feel inundated by war and famine and emergencies, etc. So like, even we have Haiti, our
yeah
neighbor in the region is the government has collapsed. Gangs are just running rampant in the streets. We have protests at UE at Mona,
yeah.
protests at UE in Trinidad,
What
protests at UE here.
the thing with the Yowie and Mona, so people were attacked and robbed on
Hmm.
campus, right? So like it. I also want to say that
That site tells a lot.
yeah, right. Like with what you were saying, sorry, repeat what the last thing you just said.
I mean about like protests in different places, like
No, just before that, like you were saying,
oh, you mean with Haiti?
yeah,
Like, there's in Haiti, people like there's gangs. The government has collapsed, and gangs have basically taken over, especially the city, Port-au-Prince.
right,
You can any point in time during the day be hearing live gunshots,
right.
people at war, ducking
So
to get
that's why.
groceries.
Okay, so that was why I wanted to talk about the fact that yeah, we do live in a very safe time, but it almost feels like that safety could kind of like spin on a dime on its head. Like,
Yeah.
it could flip at any moment, right? And
Juxtaposed by existential threat,
right,
kind of.
like as I say, it's like because like
Bell would like that term, existential threat. Hi, Bell.
yeah, hi Bell. Right. So okay, we kind of go about our days. We have to go work and not go through this regular routine, but it's almost like is a weird fallacy because it's like, oh, we're going to work as if everything is fine,
Mm-hmm.
but literally in just another part of the world, missiles are being launched at energy plants
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. It's like, and so when you see all this stuff happening on your phone or wherever you see it, you get this idea in your mind that could very easily be
Things
me.
could easily change.
That could very easily be me. Like, and it's not even like, say back in medieval times, yes, there was always the threat of other countries attacking, right? So it's not like
Well, I think it was more like other neighboring families or tribes attacking
so it's
or dying in the winter.
There was always a threat, but I think given that we've built up such a peaceful life and the rise of the more technology is way more powerful now, that thing of spinning on its head of today I could be just going home playing games with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow my entire neighborhood could be flattened.
You know what I think could contribute to that too? For example, I think in Barbados and the Caribbean, we have had like a respite from these things where we see countries in the world collapsing, but
Yeah.
at home it's relatively peaceful,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
At home, you're living in Barbados, you're going about your daily business. Everything is generally fine. The country's politically stable. Generally, over the years, has been economically stable, etc. But in the most recent years, we found that those sorts of securities have been collapsing.
Yeah.
For example, we had last year, 2024, there was a 161% increase in gun-related murders in Barbados over the previous year. right? There were 34 firearms deaths recorded, according to the latest crime data from the Barbados Crime Observatory. And just imagine that.
Yeah.
161% increase
Yeah.
in gun-related crimes. Where are the guns coming from? You know, you feel a sense of unease, like to know that the average victim was 30 years old and the average perpetrator was like 21 and a half.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Actually, not to me like the situation, but like I think I'm not sure if it was last year or a year before, but Van Wyck. Right,
Okay, yeah.
Look at that situation. Like again, when it happened, obviously it turned into a meme,
Yeah,
and thing like that.
but it's a
But
real serious thing.
look at the reality of the situation. As a van conductor got robbed by very young looking boys,
driver, yeah,
driver looking boys. And then just the other day, there was I think it was two 11-year-old boys.
Robbed, 10 to 12-year-olds that robbed, stole a van,
right? And it's
not ZR, but
yeah,
somebody's private vehicle.
Yeah, you know, the things is like you're wondering to yourself, whoa, what's going on? And then I think it was yesterday or the day before, someone got shot in front LESC, right?
Yeah,
and I was
conference center.
And I was thinking, is like, whoa, kid. One, that's a school, and two, that's literally a stone's throw away from where the Prime Minister operates.
The Prime Minister's office, because just next door to the Prime Minister's office. And what happened there was an incident of road rage that happened, I would say, about 3 to 5 kilometers away from LESC. So that happened
so a
further up the hill. Yeah,
it was a road rage.
It was a road rage incident.
Okay.
So just a brief recap of that. Further up the road, like I said, 3 to 5 kilometers away from LESC, where Ross University is, there was a road rage incident. I think the bus driver bunks the guy on an e-bike. The guy on the e-bike followed the bus to LESC and confronted the driver. You know, and he hit the driver. I think he hit the driver in the head with a blunt object. No, but I don't know what it is. They didn't say. The driver is a licensed firearm carrier, and the driver took out his gun and shot him. They're both in the hospital.
Oh my God.
So, and I mentioned that to say that, you know, we have not really seen road rage escalate like that in Barbados to that level. You know, people can come to high words, cuss somebody as they're passing you or that you overtake. Yeah. I don't, you know, people do it. But, you know, people can cuss somebody as they're passing them in traffic, and that's usually the end of that.
Yeah.
But to follow somebody for 3 to 5 kilometers, go out of your way to pick a fight with them over something that happened earlier. Like there seems to be an underlying increase in anger and depression and hopelessness that is leading people to make these kinds of changes, you know, and to make these kinds of decisions. And that is alarming.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned the PSV Van Wyck getting robbed, and yes, it turned into a meme. And I think because it turned into a meme, the seriousness of it,
reality,
didn't really hit home.
Yeah.
But PSV and minibus operators have been feeling so unsafe that on certain routes, they have stopped operating at 4:30 to 5 o'clock.
I did not know that.
Yes. So you cannot get a ZR or a minibus after 4:30 or 5 o'clock on certain routes, like going up into St. Philip, a populous route. You can't.
Yeah.
Because it feels so unsafe. So that's just last Saturday night. My neighbor does like food on the weekends, and one of the guys that works with, he got robbed at gunpoint. 2 masked men came in with guns, put a gun to his head, told him give him all the money. He gave them all the money, and they still shot his assistant.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Right? Who's a single breadwinner in their home. You know, shot the guy in his stomach. For what? You took the money. You got what you wanted.
Yeah, and then...
But because you have a gun, you need to show yourself big and bad and shoot somebody?
Yeah, and the thing... One of the things we've said about living in Barbados is that, you know, Barbados is safe as long as you don't get into the wrong life.
Yeah.
Right? Like, pretty much...
Yeah.
Most of the crimes, most of the violent crimes, I would say, were relegated to what we call like the gang life, right? You know, so if you're not involved with that, it's not gonna happen to you, right?
Yeah.
But then what we're seeing here now is like those lines are being blurred now.
Yeah,
like,
it's crossing the blood-brain barrier at this point.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's like, you know, it don't matter if you're just an innocent bystander or somewhere, you could get involved. Like there wasn't a guy you said that got shot at a gas station.
Yeah,
Right.
gas attendant at
Yeah.
Curtains got shot. Was that the end of last year or early up this year? People drove in to take out somebody, shot at somebody, killed them, hit the gas attendant. Nobody thought that maybe we could hit a gas tank here. It's
Yeah,
not
exactly. I
wise
was like, is it, you don't
to shoot
at
up a gas station. Right? So again, that's like the crime is seeping out of the communities where, sad to say, where you would expect it, or the areas where you would think that the gang-related activity is occurring, and it's seeping into areas where regular people are being affected.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember last year specifically, we were told by prominent people in government, and I'm purposely not saying who they are, but we were told by prominent people in government that, oh, you know, there's nothing for the average Barbadian to worry about because it's basically gang reprisals.
Yeah.
Right? It's gang reprisals, so it's nothing for us to worry about. Tell that to the gas attendant that was shot. You understand? Tell that to the people who were traumatized at the conference center and the Ross University students yesterday. Tell that to the 2 10-year-old girls that witnessed the shooting in St. Philip over the weekend.
Yeah.
Right? So these are the kind of things that leave people asking questions.
You know, like,
what's happening? What's the government response? Am I safe?
Yeah, you know, and I think it doesn't help to know that you had told me the other day that police are no longer responding to accidents.
You're no longer responding
Right,
to road accidents without injury.
And it's right without injury. I think that also involved
But they're coming for your tent though.
Yeah. But I also think that that is a direct consequence of the police being understaffed.
Yep.
Right. And so, you know, it's a little bit disconcerting where these kind of things are happening whilst the police are being understaffed. You know, it's like, as much as you have different opinions about the police, the truth is no one feels safe if we don't have security systems in place.
Yeah.
Right?
Excuse me, please.
So going back to what we were saying, a lot of craziness is starting going around, right? And we don't exactly we as citizens, we don't exactly know, okay, these are these problems, what are our solutions? And I think that's also started to seep into this kind of existential discord, start to seep into how we go about our lives, especially our working lives, right? You know, so I'm speaking from my generation in this regard. A general consensus I feel is that our generation kind of feels a little bit powerless, right? You know, because to lay out the factors, we work jobs, right? Grateful for the jobs, but you know, sometimes jobs can be pretty monotonous, right? Then, you know, couple that with, you know, the fact that our spending power gets weaker as inflation rises and things kind of start getting more expensive. So it's like the things that we are able to do with the monotonous jobs, you know, it's like, you know, the work and reward, like the reward don't seem as impactful as it used to be, right? So, you know,
interesting you mentioned reward,
right? But to bring some even facts to support this, you know, inflation was at 1.8%. I'm using the U.S. for this data because I didn't find any for the Barbados yet, but inflation in the U.S. was at 1.8% in just 2019, right? And now it was up to 8% in 2022, but dropped back down to 4.1% in 2023. But it's just to show you, like, just because it dropped doesn't mean that prices dropped. It just means the rate of inflation dropped, right?
So in Barbados, for example, in 2023, our inflation rate was 9.7.
9.7, right? So again, 1.8% in 2019 versus 4.1%, peaking at 8% in 2022.
And in 2021, it was 1.4.
Exactly, right?
It's crazy.
So it's like that's a rapid rise of inflation.
Well,
right?
I will say that I think inflation, to get a little technical financially, inflation in 2020 was 0.4. and in 2021 was 1.43, and in 2022 was 4.47.
Yeah.
So you see a drastic jump from
Jump.
2021 to 2022.
2022.
I think 2020 and 2021 were controlled years
Yeah,
because
exactly.
of the thing that happened to everyone globally.
Exactly. So you can't really count.
So I don't think those. I think we should probably look at 2022, where we were getting back to a bit more normal. Was 4.47. So you were talking about like inflation and the impact that it has had on people, and you mentioned that even though inflation rates were down, prices were up.
Well, the rate of inflation.
The rate of inflation was down, but prices were still up.
Yeah, prices still up. So it's just to say that, on paper, it might look like things are getting better. That doesn't, like, prices have still risen throughout those periods. They're just not rising as fast in this current timeline. But, given, as I said, it went from, the rate of inflation went from 1.8 to peaking at 8% in 2022, and then it dropped to 4.1% in 2023.
And that's US. Because in
right?
Barbados, like I mentioned, it was like 9.7 in 2023.
Right? So things like that, how they contribute to how expensive things have gotten. Like, for instance, eggs. They've had like I think it was like around their consumer price index has had a 51% increase come in between the years of, I think, 2021 and 2023. Actually, they peaked at 82%, but it dropped down to 51% in the year of 2023. So they peaked at 82% in 2023, dropped to 51%. But it just goes to show you that, like, these kind of things kind of put strain on a person, But you're working these monotonous jobs, you're working these monotonous jobs, and your spending power kind of gets these other stressors that's getting put on them, right?
There's a lot more, lot more. Because, like, for example, the cost of living in Barbados on average is 5.2% higher than the United States.
Right.
That's wild.
Exactly, right? So it's like you're working these jobs, and then things are getting tough, seemingly getting tougher and tougher, and but at least by the statistics. So the things that you would like to do to maybe enjoy yourself become much, much less a priority, because you have to focus on bills, food, things like that, the necessities, so that the actual enjoyment of life kind of gets a little bit more difficult. And then even the things that people want to work towards, which is why you would have the monotonous jobs, like owning a home or moving out or starting a family, getting married or traveling. Like, these things start to seem further and further away, because you're being bogged down by how much more difficult everyday life is getting because of the rising cost of living, right? So these so you're working in monotonous jobs, and you're going through these things, and the rewards for these jobs that you're working are getting further and further away. Apathy starts to build up. Like, the stress, I think, turns to apathy. Because it's like, all right, well, I'm not sure what to do with this.
So you can't constantly function at that high level of stress.
Exactly.
So you got to do something to compensate. And maybe you get to a point where you stop feeling the stress, but you kind of get into autopilot mode.
Yeah, right. So it's kind of like people are like, all right, look, the popular Gen Z term is, it is what it is, right? I can't crash out every single time, so it is what it is.
And I guess for me, I don't know if it's just my generation or if it's me personally, but I approach things differently. It's like, okay, things aren't rosy. Things aren't the way I want them to be. Either A, what am I going to do about it, or how do I adjust? Right? Not like I abandon my goals and get rid of them, but it's like I can have the goals, but sometimes living in the shadow of your goals as well can be depressing and anxiety inducing, especially like you mentioned, as you see them drifting further and further away. And it's a case where you don't want to lose your goals, but you also want to live in the reality of the current situation and be like, look, this is where I am. How can I make the best out of this moment that I'm in? How can I enjoy the moment that I'm in, be rewarded in the moment, rather than constantly delaying the reward for the future? Also, that seems further and further away.
With that thing you said, rewarding, I I think another thing that contributes to the workplace apathy, and I would say by extension life apathy, and let's say in the hunter gatherer sense of the word, the jobs that you did directly were in service of the community that
Yeah.
you worked for. So if you're a farmer, you grow potatoes, your family eats those potatoes, right? The sell those potatoes, the people in your town and your community, they like you work directly goes to the benefit of somebody else. And you can see that,
Yeah.
right?
You can see the
You
potatoes
can see
being
potatoes
used.
being used, right? In our world is a little bit less one-to-one in how those benefits go about. Like, let's say our jobs, for example, right? Um, you constantly in this mode when you're doing graphic design, and that a lot of the stuff that you end up doing is for social media, right? And it's all for selling of products, right? You we serve clients who want to sell products, and that works fine, is what it is. But the point is, it doesn't feel like, oh, this is meaningful. No, it doesn't feel like there's a bigger purpose to this. It's like, to be fair, it, it can seem a little bit superficial because all you're really doing is serving the market. You're all is it's really just for an economic machine.
And I think part of it too is that you would, when you're putting in those inputs, but you're also feeling like the direct or the indirect reward of capitalism, where it may not be as one-to-one as I'm farmer, I grow potatoes, I eat potatoes, I give my neighbor potatoes, he makes a potato pie. But it's a little bit more of an ecosystem. But when you feel the benefit of that ecosystem, that feeling of despondency goes away, where your input, while not leading to immediate reward, still you realize there's a reciprocal effect that you're feeling from someone else's input coming to you. But what we're seeing now, I think, is less of that, where the world is becoming, the economic situations are a little bit more unstable, political situations are more unstable, etc. And so the reward that you would feel coming back to you, or you would expect to come back to you, is not there.
Exactly. So again, couple all of these factors together against like the existential threat of, okay, I could work really hard. For these rewards that are getting harder and harder to attain, under a job that I don't necessarily feel a lot of purpose behind. Right, I'm doing all these things, I'm making all these right. I'm making all these sacrifices, and let's say I do end up working my butt off, and I get a house, I get an apartment, I do something that was difficult to do. And then because of some politician's decision, all of that could get wiped away at a time of hack because somebody wanted to start a war with somebody else, and now they're sending missiles into apartment blocks, into hospitals.
Well, in a way, we have felt it not to that extreme degree.
Yeah, we in Barbados, but
we have had prominent politicians who shall remain nameless comment on and call on Russia to end the war in Ukraine, etc. Shortly after that, a Russian hacker attacked the Barbados government.
Exactly, right?
All of the information out there on the internet.
Exactly. And that was not, it didn't even seem like
was there a connection? I'm not saying that there was, but ironically enough, one thing happened, the next thing happened. So I think that kind of, I don't know if that was a thing that helped us to realize there's a much shorter connection. There's less distance between what's happening out there in the world and what's happening here locally.
Exactly. So it's like, the reason I say, like, obviously being Barbados, we haven't really experienced something like cataclysmic, like a world, like a war or anything like that, right? But I think it's the knowledge that, given that we're on our phones and we're seeing all these events happen to people outside of us, the idea forms in your head very quickly that, oh, this could very easily be me.
Yeah,
like, this could very much happen to me, like the day somebody just has a problem with wherever I'm living, or
the day a politician decides to rage quit geopolitics,
right? And then a nuke drop, a missile could drop, and all of my potential hard work, we're not asking. You know, our potential hard work could be wiped away. It's like it's not that it's a very probable situation. It's the fact that it is not it's not probable, but it's not impossible. I think
Right.
it's like dealing with that is dealing
You're
with
much
that.
closer to the idea of it
Yeah,
happening.
and so it's like
Whereas
dealing with
before,
that.
like in Barbados, we were at a stage where, like 20 years ago, maybe even 30 years ago, where the world happened out there in the world.
Yeah,
But in Barbados, we were just here in our own little bubble necessarily, or in the Caribbean, we're in our bubble and we're living our lives and we're happy. We're not as connected to, or we
Yeah.
felt that way, we're not as connected to what's happening
Yeah.
out there in the world. I think a lot of it has come with like a lot of the messaging around climate change. Um, a lot of people probably know where I stand on that. I do believe that mankind has done a lot of crap with the environment. I do not believe, and there are a lot of scientists who are now coming out saying that we're not in the state of dread that people think we're in, that people are trying to push that we're in. We've done crap. Human beings have done nonsense. We've wasted resources like nobody's business. But we're not like, and for example, Greta Thunberg was saying that 2025, the world will be pretty much, we'd be past the point of no return, the world will be burning. Still here. You know, they keep extending the deadlines for the point of no return constantly because science changes, things evolve. So it's like, okay, there isn't that urgency. And I understand the need to want to get people to make changes. Making changes is important. But also, is it effective to gaslight people to the point of anxiety? Because I think that's where it's gotten to. So I'm not saying do nothing. I'm just saying that what has happened has been a lot of pumping messaging to people that we are going to burn. Everything will collapse if we don't act now. And that urgency has caused people to be in a terrible state of anxiety. So it's not saying do nothing. It's not saying don't make no changes. But the way the messaging is
I
put
think
across.
in terms of just like let's say that for instance, like the news kind of just reports on like the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So there's that. There's the economic cold wars that the people have with like America enforcing tariffs upon Canada and Mexico, and then them retaliating counter tariffs and like that. What the effects that has on everybody else.
Right? All we wondering is if we can get my Amazon shipment.
Exactly,
like,
right.
My things can ship.
So like things like that, there's the political tensions, there's actual wars, things like all of these things are kind of in your face all the time, and they don't help us to feel secure.
And I know I just said that in jest, right? But as you were talking, that hit me like we've come to rely so much on these connections that we have with the outside world. Like I can buy something on Amazon and get it shipped to Barbados in like a week or 2 weeks or whatever. And when you see these things happening, there's a real feeling of, wait, hold on. These things that I've become used to, am I going to lose them? The convenience that I've become reliant on, is that going to be cut off or delayed or like what's happening? Suddenly the ground that we thought we were standing so firmly on is now softer under our feet.
Right. It was kind of what I mean. Like, that again, that same existential feeling of everything I have could easily be wiped away by forces way beyond my control, way beyond my concern. In that, let's face it, is like Trump. Let's say Trump and his desire to end the war in Ukraine, right? He had an argument with Zelensky in the, I think it was the White House.
Yeah, the Oval Office.
The Oval Office. He had an argument with them, and them having these tensions, right? Them having these tensions as their political leaders, but Trump's tensions with Zelensky are not reflective of what the average American is feeling. And I'll say to bring that to say Myanmar, our prime minister, right?
Gotta be careful how you call people names. Bro.
Right. I say, well, let's bring it to our prime minister. Let's say there is a scenario where our Myanmar has an issue with some other country, right? Is that position reflective of how I literally feel as a citizen? It's like realistically, I'm so far removed from it. It's like I'm so far removed from it in terms of my concern for it. but the effects of it will be felt. I will be felt. Is like the decisions of the minority are felt by the majority. Is like it doesn't. I don't want to say it doesn't feel fair, but it doesn't feel like the world is in the correct, like the way the world functions in the correct way it should,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like personally for me, now this is one of my few political statements. Was like, why the hell are old men sending young men to fight wars,
Mm-hmm.
right? What is two men, Zelensky and Putin? They're fighting a war. What the hell does it have to do with those young people? And so it's like I'm just saying, like I say all that to say, you to bring it back to that same concept of like I can only control this. I
Mm-hmm.
work, I go about life as difficult as it is. I make my changes. Why I go about difficult as it is to get the rewards I want,
Mm-hmm.
and then something that has nothing to do with me comes
Mm-hmm.
along and can make a mess of that.
Yeah.
It's like that does not create a very good environment for you feeling good about life,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it can be very hard to cope with that.
Yeah. I guess that's kind of where we differ, because I see all of that and I don't dismiss it, but I go, you know what? There's nothing I can do to control that.
Mm-hmm.
So let me control what I can control.
Mm-hmm.
Let me control my day to day. Let me do what I know I can do to influence my current situation. Let me disconnect from all of that and focus on one of the things I found that is helpful to me is that when out there is chaos, I put my head down and I look at the in here. What am I doing? What can I do to get through today, to have fun in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
to feel rewarded in the moment? The little rewards, like I may not be getting the big goal, or I might feel the big goal is in threat, but you know what? I sent off that email early. I made a client happy. I had a snack that I wanted to have today. Like just the little things, those little moments of joy or relief or fulfillment, those help me to just move through the day
Yeah.
and focus.
And we said we differ. It's not like I don't do these things myself, It's not
I
like
know, but I think I'm not saying you don't do them, but I think in the overview of things,
I was more speaking up from Gen Z as
a whole.
whole, not me personally.
Okay, so maybe that's not you personally, but that's where I differ to that. Like,
right.
I don't have that existential feeling of dread. I'm just more like, that's happening. That's rough. I got things to deal with. Let me deal with these.
Yeah.
And try to keep it in balance. Like, be aware of what's happening out there. Be aware of how it can affect me, but also go, you know what? Right now, my day-to-day needs to get done.
Yeah.
And if I focus on that too much, I'm not getting my day-to-day done.
Yeah, I don't think the is that Gen Z is so full of existential dread that they can't do what they need to do. I think it's more like the apathy is reason the apathy occurs is because you see all these things that just don't like you see that you're disappointed in the world way the world is, and you hope for something different. But you again that feeling of powerlessness that we talked
Yeah.
about is like there's very little that I feel like I can do to better things, to change to change things into onto a better course. It's like that level of powerlessness combined with all those things is what fuels the apathy. And
I think that's what also fuels things like the college protests, etc. Because I think both our generations, maybe Gen Z a little bit more, have been basically told you can be anything you want to be, and you need to go out there and change the world. And I think what ends up happening is that you go into the world, you leave school, you leave home with all that energy and exuberance, and then you basically run into a wall where you realize the world is a lot more inflexible than I thought it would be. Right? Like there's less of an opportunity I have to actually change the big world out there. And then that leads to frustration. And you see it reflected in a couple of ways. Protests, apathy.
Yeah, is and so and I'd say I say apathy too in that um you're never really sure what to make of the things,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're never really sure what to make of things, but there is actually a way to. I do believe there are ways to kind of like deal with those things
Hmm.
and like these big issues. There are coping mechanisms, right? Like there's well, there's there I would say there are healthy coping mechanisms
Healthy
and
coping.
more
Healthy
healthy
is
coping
important to say there. Yes.
mechanisms, right? Where you have to kind of like see the world for what it is,
Hmm.
and I think to yourself like how you said, okay, things suck. I don't even know how if there's anything I can do to change these sort of things that I can't control that suck. But let me see, okay, what can I do on my level, in my area to kind of make my life better, the things that are around me, like make my life better, make my friends' lives better,
Yeah.
like that aspect of the unplugging from social media and plugging and like getting back into like socializing with
Yeah.
people, right? And if so,
Because the
if
two are so different.
right, yeah, like if it's not socializing, there may be something else, it's like if that's reading, if that's taking some time to play a game, do something that is like small, fun, pleasurable,
Yeah.
something that really helps remind you about what's enjoyable, what's fulfilling about life,
Yeah.
right?
And be in the moment. I think we often try to multitask, and that pulls our brain into many different
Yeah,
spaces.
yeah,
I know when I'm at the gym, for example, I'll listen to a podcast. And if the podcast happens to end, I'll just take out my headphones
yeah,
and just interact with the world around me. Even if I don't interact with any other person, like I'm solely focused on being in the gym.
Mhm.
I'm not focused on trying to learn something new from a podcast or watch this video or be entertained while I am doing the thing. I'm
Yeah,
doing the thing.
yeah,
And sometimes that singular focus can help our brains to just almost detox and just focus on that thing and relax and not have anything else going on. For me, sometimes I'm in traffic and I'm driving and there's no radio, there's no music, there's no nothing. I'm just interacting with the environment around me, and that helps to get to process your thoughts as well. I think we are so overstimulated that we don't have time with our own thoughts.
yeah,
Either you're at work and you're hustling at work, or you're trying to enjoy life through partying and whatever brings you that enjoyment.
mhm.
But then, where is the time for you to parse your thoughts? Where's the time for your brain to settle?
Yeah. So even another good coping mechanism, you know, diaries, journals,
Yeah.
things like just the act of just getting all the jumbled thoughts you have and like just putting them out and like just seeing them can help you process them
Yeah.
very well. And so a lot of people are kind of unplugging, like, they're I say this is ironic, but I saw on social media this trend where people are they're unplugging from social media. They're going on hikes. They're, you know, just going outside, or they're not on going. They're divorcing themselves from the internet, right?
Hmm.
Which is funny because growing up, the internet was like the thing to get on. Now that the internet has become so normalized, the
It's the
internet
thing to get
get
off.
off, right? It's like let's leave the internet. Let's focus no more on like connecting with people, or doing something that helps you connect with yourself, um, uh, and so I think these things like you integrate these healthy coping mechanisms into your life. These things that kind of bring you a little bit of joy, a little bit of fulfillment, and you couple them with maybe something like a change of perspective.
Hmm.
I think even a change of perspective is a coping mechanism. Where just like you look at something and think to yourself, okay, do I have the right mindset towards this particular thing? Like you said, the world is in a rough place, but to be fair, the world's always going to be in a rough place.
Yeah.
The world's always going to be a rough place. Doesn't mean that I have to be reflective of the world,
Correct.
right? And I think finding like the right balance for yourself, if as a person, you like say you're more extroverted, that you do better when you're at least going out every weekend, and you're at least, it doesn't even have to be a party. It just has to be like maybe you see some place, you go sightseeing, you go traveling on a bike or something like that. You know, understanding yourself and understanding what you need in your life, what level of things you need in your life to have fulfillment, um, is a way to cope. It's like coping is a lifestyle.
Yes,
Coping is a lifestyle.
it's how you
right?
manage your
How you
lifestyle.
manage your lifestyle, right? So
And there's something that Thomas Sowell said, that there are no solutions, only trade-offs.
right.
And I think we try to necessarily like find the big solution, and or we try to fix everything so it's 100% fixed. But what is the best way that I can manage the situation? Like for a lot of people grew up with what they would call the distant father. Like millennials know it very well. The father who's working hard, bringing home the money, putting a roof over your head, there's food on your table. But I didn't feel my father's love, and a lot of millennials are in therapy over that. I'm not, but just saying. And not to belittle that either. But what's the trade-off? Like, what would people rather have? And extremes were used when I heard this on a podcast for a reason. Would they rather have the father who's not working but always home, showing all the love, but he's not working, he's not bringing those things, and so because of that, you're not able to get the college education or the food that you want to eat or the roof over your head, that kind of thing. So where is that balance? What is the trade-off, right? And there, to get one set of things, you just have to remember, if one version of the father and the other version of the father are kind of on a spectrum, you got to understand that when you move toward one, there's a trade-off of moving away from the other. Right? So just remember that. And I think if we take that view of life, that you're never probably it's not going to be perfect, but perfect is the enemy of done. And so just live in that space where you do your best to find your balance, and things that can help you do that is like just slowing down. Slow down with life, get away from the dopamine hit activities, like the excitement, the video games, the parties, the going out.
Okay, we slow down the video games. So the kids can be very helpful, just saying.
I'm saying not all the time,
yes.
right? Like, detach from those things. Get outside. I find the days that I am, like, for example, Sunday is usually my most relaxing day, and the Sundays that I find are best for me are the days when I get out and go to the beach, or I go and do work or something like that. Like, I find a sense of fulfillment outside of just being at home and sitting down and binge watching something, because it's so much more rewarding. And it's the journey to the thing. It's the journey to the activity that I think gives the reward rather than the thing itself.
Yeah.
And that's something that Andrew Huberman says a lot.
Yeah. I also think some other things that kind of help, I think just generally maybe make you feel better and cope with life as a whole, is some kind of cause that's like bigger than yourself, something that takes you out of yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
For some, let's say for me personally, my cause would be pretty much like being there for my family and being there for my friends. Like looking out for people that in my circle and having them look out for me.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's really my cause in that. Something that is like, okay, whatever going on with me, don't really matter. I got people I gotta look after, right? Things like that. So, but that can mean different things for other people. For some people that might be church.
Yeah.
Going
helping out at a charity.
Helping out at charity, like at certain clubs like Lions Club, Gawani Club,
Optimist Club.
Things are where
it's not even a structured club, just helping in your community,
right? Just something where you for 1 second have to be like, okay, no, despite whatever might be going on in my life, maybe I had a bad week, whatnot, I'm here to make sure that somebody else reaps some sort of benefit. Somebody else has a good day at least, right? Helping out somebody else.
And that does wonders when you're able to focus on someone other than yourself.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have this idea about dread over the world that their kids are going to grow up in. But there is, I'm sorry, I don't have the name of it. It's the eupodemic effect. I'm pretty sure I said that wrong. But it's the effect basically of having kids and the positive effect that having kids has on a person. Where people who tend to feel a little bit despondent about life feel a little bit more hopeful when they have kids. Partially because they're going to do everything they can to make the world a better place for their kids.
Exactly,
right? So in doing that, they make their lives better by trying to make their lives better for their kids. So there are things like that you can do. I'm not saying everybody rush out there and have kids, although we do have a population deficit happening. So maybe
I have some different. I have some particular opinions.
Do it responsibly.
I have some particular.
That's all I'm gonna say. But find things that take you out of you. That take you to a place where you can serve others, and that tends to help too, like reset where your mind is. Spend time away from the daily grind, and you ever been binge watching something and realize you're like 8 episodes in and didn't know when one episode ended and another began?
Yeah.
And you're just kind of mindlessly going through it. I think when we are more purposeful about how we go through what we go through, it helps us to find more benefit from it and more value from it, and ultimately we feel better.
Yeah.
So, those are just some thoughts that we've had in terms of where we are and the general apathy that people feel and things that we can do about it.
Yeah.
There's no short term, there's no like quick fix.
Mm-hmm.
There's no injection,
Yeah.
there's no one silver bullet that will solve it all. But I think some of these things can be very beneficial and helpful.
Yeah, so those are the things that we had to talk about. If there's any kind of advice, any tips that you have, or any coping mechanisms that you employ in your own life,
Positive coping mechanisms.
positive coping mechanisms,
I beg.
right? That you employ in your own life that you think somebody else could learn from. If they were in your shoes, please feel free to share in the comments. We all do better when we learn from each other, right? And also, if there are any topics that you guys want us to talk about in the future, anything that you want us to do have a little bit of insight on, please feel free to tell us in the comments as well. Remember to like, follow, and share this video. And I said like, follow, and share. Like, comment, and share this video. But follow us on all our socials with TikTok. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram.
Hit the subscribe button on YouTube.
And honestly, just have a good day wherever you are. And goodbye.
All right, take care.